What's up? Good evening. It is Storytime Sunday, so we're going to be continuing A Daughter of the Samurai, which we've been reading for the past few weeks here every Sunday night. I hope y'all are ready to get nice and cozy, get comfy, get cuddled up, get yourself a nice warm drink, a nice cold drink. I personally have one of each. I got a cold beer and a hot cup of tea. So, I mean, get whatever you fancy, and I don't know, get comfy. If it's late for you, I'm on the West Coast, so for me it's only 8:30, but for some of you it might be, closer to midnight or so. If it's late, go ahead, get snuggled in. I'm here to read you a bedtime story. If it's not bedtime for you, then I'm just here to read you a regular story, so hope that's cool. I burnt my tongue earlier on this, not this specific cup of tea, an earlier previous cup of tea today, so I'm gonna try to be careful because my tongue hurts. You know me, I love my tea, but I don't love being burned on my tongue, so my tongue is still sore from earlier today. I messed up, so my schedule at work changed today, which means that I actually just got off work about 30 minutes ago. And so I've been sitting in this chair for the past 9 hours already. So we might do a little bit of a shorter Storytime Sunday than usual today. Usually we do about 2 hours-ish. We might do only about an hour or so today. Depends on how long the chapters are. But I have other things to attend to in my day because I totally forgot that 8:30 was going to be immediately after getting off work at 8. Typically I get off at 6, but now I'm going to be getting off at 8 going forward, so it's actually not bad though. I'm pretty excited about the schedule change. Just need to take some things into consideration for streaming going forward here. You might notice that this week's schedule hasn't been posted yet. It is Sunday, so that's pretty typical. But I might have to delay it until tomorrow. I might delay posting my schedule till tomorrow to see what's going on this week with the change and everything. And I do have a couple other things going on this week that I have to take into account before I post that. So schedule might be posted tomorrow afternoon instead of tonight like usual, but that's okay. We're still going to be here this week. We're reading tonight obviously, and next Sunday too. We'll be doing some more Eastward this week, and I'm hoping to sneak in some Overwatch this week. I meant to do it last week, but I just got too competitive and I didn't feel like streaming because I was really in it. My heart was really in it, and I didn't want to be super competitive while live. So yeah, hopefully this week we'll do some Overwatch. We're going to do some more Eastward. We're going to have a good time. I'll see you all there. As far as what we're doing in this book, for tonight, A Daughter of the Samurai, I'll give you a little recap of what's going on if you haven't been here for previous sessions. This book is an autobiographical book of a young girl from a rural area in Japan in the late 1800s. Her father was, in fact, a samurai. Ended up being like a prisoner of war, and their household was pretty well off for the most part, but after times started changing, they started having to sell all their belongings, and they still lived a pretty prosperous, pretty nice life. But her brother set up an arranged marriage after their father died, set up an arranged marriage for her with a man who was running a company in America, so she ended up having to move to the US. She ended up moving to Ohio. So we're a little bit halfway through the book, and she actually just moved to the US last week on our session last week. So we're not too far into her American adventure. So far, she said about 2 things about her husband, and both of them were super negative. The guy seems like an asshole, but she isn't saying negative. Like, she's not saying like, oh man, this guy's an asshole. She's just like, yeah, haha, my husband said this. But like, dude sounds like a douche. But she has learned to enjoy the changes of American life. She's gotten pretty close with her mother-in-law in the US and spends most of her time with her. She went to school to learn English and everything in Japan before she moved to the US, and I'm not really sure where we're going to go from here. We got this much left in the book, so yeah, little under halfway to go. And we'll see what she gets up to now, because I don't know where we're going from here, but I'm excited to find out. So we'll get started here with chapter... Oh yeah, and one other thing to mention about this book before we get started tonight, I've mentioned this in the past, but if you're just tuning in for the first time, this book is a public domain book because that's all that Twitch allows me to read. So it's a public domain book, and this copy was printed by some person on Amazon who just wanted to make an extra buck, I guess, selling copies for $3, which I thought was a good deal in comparison to the $20 they typically go for. And so there's a lot of like weird typos in it. It's because probably some dude in his basement just typed it up to make some extra money. I don't think he made that much. I think he sold like 5 books at like $3 a piece. So I don't know if it was worth it for him to type all this up. But if I stumble around sometimes, it's probably because there's some words mashed together and I'm trying to figure out why. Let's tilt this down a little bit. And we'll get started with chapter 18 called Strange Customs. We had a large stone church in our suburb which was not quite paid for, and a society of churchwomen called the Ladies' Aid occasionally gave a fair or a concert, and sometimes a play with local talent in order to obtain money to add to the fund. One evening, Mother, Matsuo, and I attended one of these concerts. On the program was a vocal solo of some classic selection. The singer was the gifted daughter of a wealthy citizen and had received her musical education in Europe. I knew her as a rather quiet young woman with a gentle voice and dignified manner. Therefore, I was surprised when the music began to see her step forward briskly and informally, bow smilingly to the audience, right and left, and then, with much facial expression, give a vocal exhibition of high, clear trills and echoes that to my untrained ears was a strange and marvelous discord, but the most wonderful thing that I had ever heard in my life. The effect left on my mind was of brightness, quick motion, and high-pitched sound. In strong contrast is our classic music, which always suggests subdued colors, slow movement, and deep, mellow tones. Also, like most Japanese art, our music requires listening eyes as well as ears. Otherwise, its appeal is lost. It's story time already, Dawn. Yes, you're just in time. I've only read like 1 paragraph, so definitely on time. Definitely feels like already to me as well because I just got off work. So my schedule changed today, so I went straight from work to here, but I'm excited to read. And I'm glad to have you here. Our classic stage is always the same. The entire back is one solid board of natural cedar wood on which is painted a gigantic dwarf pine. The floor is of camphor wood and is bare. On this the singers, who, of course, are always men, sit motionless as dolls. Their dress is the old-fashioned, soft-hued garment of ceremony. Each one, before beginning to sing, makes a slow, deep bow and with studied deliberation places his fan horizontally before him on the floor. Then, with his hands on his knees, palms down and sitting very erect and motionless, he tells in song, and with incredible elocutionary power, some wonderful tale of war and romance, but wholly without movement of body or change of facial expression. Elocutionary. That's a new word. We gotta look it up. Elocutionary. Do you know that one? I don't. I don't know if you can hear this clattering in the background, but Cassidy is going nuts. He is playing. I played with him for the 30 minutes I had between work and stream, but he's still going wild. I thought it would tire him out a bit. I'm sorry if you hear him crashing around behind me. Elocutionary. This is thesaurus.com. I needed dictionary.com. Thank you. Elocutionary. It's still taking me to thesaurus.com. What is this nonsense? Oh, there's 2 tabs. Okay. Can I... It's just taking me to thesaurus.com even when I search it on dictionary.com. What is this nonsense? Okay, I finally got there. This is a mess, dictionary.com. What are you doing? Elocution. A person's manner of speaking or reading aloud in public, or the study and practice of oral delivery, including the control of both voice and gesture. You wish you could hear him clattering about? I don't know. Elocutionary is not a noun, it's an adjective, but they don't have elocutionary, just elocution. So we'll go with that for now. I'll fix it when I add it to the bot. That makes sense in the context. At the close, the singer's face is often flushed with feeling, but with no change of expression, he bows, then gently takes up his fan and resumes his former impassive attitude. The audience sits in profound silence. The listeners may be touched to tears or raised to the highest pitch of excitement, but this can be detected only by the sound of subdued sniffling or the catch of a quick sigh. For centuries, repression has been the keynote of everything of a high character, and the greatest tribute that can be paid to a singer and actor of classic drama is to be received in deep silence. One thing in America to which I could not grow accustomed was the joking attitude in regard to women and money. For men and women of all classes, from newspapers, novels, lectures, and once even from the pulpit, I heard allusions to amusing stories of women secreting money in odd places, coaxing it from their husbands, borrowing it from a friend, or saving it secretly for some private purpose. There was never anything dishonorable implied in this. Perhaps the money was saved to get new curtains for the parlor, or even a birthday present for the husband. These jokes were a puzzle to me, and a constantly growing one, for as time passed on, I myself saw things which made me realize that probably a foundation of serious truth might lie beneath some of the amusing stories. Our suburb was small, and we were all interested in each other's affairs, so I was acquainted with almost everybody. I knew the ladies to be women of education and culture, yet there seemed to be among them a universal and openly confessed lack of responsibility about money. They all dressed well and seemed to have money for specific purposes, but no open purse to use with free and responsible judgment. Once at a church fair where I had a table, several ladies, after walking around the hall and examining the various booths, had bought some small cheap articles, but left the expensive ones, saying, "My husband will be here later on and I'll get him to buy it," or, "When the gentlemen come, these high-priced things will sell." I had never known a Japanese man to buy anything for his home or to be expected to. Once, when I was shopping with a friend, she stopped at her husband's office to ask him for money. I thought that this was strange enough, but a still more curious thing happened when I went with Mother to a meeting of the church ladies where they were raising a certain amount for some unusual purpose. The Ladies' Aid had recently made a great many calls on the husband's purses, and so this time each member had pledged herself to bring $5, which she must obtain without asking her husband for it. The meeting I attended was the one where the money was handed in, each lady telling as she gave it how she had succeeded in getting her $5. Most had saved it in various ways, a little at a time. One said that she had made a real sacrifice in return to her milliner a new hat, paid for but not worn, receiving in exchange one that was $5 less in price. Another had sold 2 theater tickets which had been given to her. Still another told, in very witty rhyme, how she, a poor Ladies' Aid lady, had spent most of her leisure time for a week and had pledged herself for a week longer in darning stockings for the children of her neighbor, a rich non-Ladies' Aid lady. The meeting was intensely interesting. It reminded me of our poem-making parties, only, of course, this was gayer, and these stories were an undignified subject. I enjoyed it all until a pretty, bright, and beautifully dressed woman arose and said that she didn't know how to save money and she didn't know how to earn it. She had promised not to cheat in her charge account at the store, and she had promised not to ask her husband for the $5, so she had done the only thing that was left for her to do. She had stolen it from her husband's pocket when he was asleep. This report caused a great deal of merriment, but I was saddened. All the reports seemed tragic after she said, "That was the only thing left to do." It seemed incredible here in America, where women are free and commanding, that a woman of dignity and culture, the mistress of a home, the mother of children, should be forced either to ask her husband for money or be placed in a humiliating position. When I left home, Japan at large was still following the old custom of educating a girl to be responsible for the well-being of her entire family, husband included. The husband was the lord of the family, but the wife was mistress of the home, and according to her own judgment, controlled all its expenses: the house, the food, the children's clothing and education, all social and charitable responsibilities, and her own dress, the material and style of which were expected to conform to her husband's position. Where did she get the money? The husband's income was for his family, and his wife was the banker. When he wanted money for himself, he asked her for it, and it was her pride to manage so that she could allow him the amount suitable for a man of his standing. As to what the requirement of his position might be, there was little question, for to know this was part of the wife's education. The husband might shrug his shoulders and say, "It's very inconvenient," but the entire house and its standing were his pride, and any disarrangement that would mar the whole was his loss. Therefore, the needs of the home came first. A man married primarily as a duty to the gods and his ancestors, secondarily to obtain a mistress for the home who would guide it, in such a manner that it and its family might be a credit to him. If she managed well, he was complimented by his friends. If she failed, he was pitied. This was true of all classes except lords of large estates or financial kings of business. In these cases, there was a home treasurer, but he was at the call of the mistress, and her judgment as to her needs was supreme. The treasurer's only power of protest lay in the right to say, with many apologies, "The honorable mistress is about to overdraw her account." The hint was generally sufficient for a Japanese woman, like everyone in a responsible position, desired to do her duty creditably. Conventional forms are losing in rigidity year by year, but even yet the people are considerably influenced by rules which in the past were uniform and recognized by all. Any marked deviation from these is still considered bad form. The standards of my own and my adopted country differed so widely in some ways, and my love for both lands was so sincere that sometimes I had an odd feeling of standing upon a cloud in space and gazing with measuring eyes upon two separate worlds. At first, I was continually trying to explain by Japanese standards all the queer things that came every day before my surprised eyes, for no one seemed to know the origin or significance of even the most familiar customs, nor why they existed and were followed. To me, coming from a land where there is an unforgotten reason for every fashion of dress, for every motion and etiquette, indeed for almost every trivial act of life, this indifference of Americans seemed very singular. Mother was a wonderful source of information, but I felt a hesitation about asking too many questions, for my curiosity was so frequently about odd, trifling, unimportant things, such as why ladies kept on their hats in church while men took theirs off, what was the use of the china plates which I saw hanging on the walls of some beautiful houses, why guests are taken to the privacy of a bedroom and asked to put their hats and cloaks on the bed, a place that suggested sleep or sickness, why people make social calls in the evening, the time of leisure in Japan, what originated the merriment and nonsense of Halloween and April Fool's Day, and why such a curious custom exists as the putting of gifts in stockings. Stockings! The very humblest of all the garments that are worn. Connor, no, you were showering! No, I'm so sorry. You're not that late. You didn't miss too much. You've only missed, like, 2 pages. It's okay. You just missed, you didn't miss, you came in at the most important part, because I think that's a great paragraph about how she just thought all these things were so silly, and she wanted to ask about them, but then she felt kind of stupid about asking all these questions, so she didn't. As somebody who wonders every single little thing every single second of the day, I fuck with that. I vibe with that. Definitely relatable. Definitely relatable. I have all these questions too. Why do we do all that shit? Where did April Fool's Day come from? I don't know. Do you guys know? It seems strange to me that there should never be any hint or allusion to these customs in conversation, in books, or in newspapers. In Japan, tradition, folklore, and symbolism are before one all the time. The dress of the people on the streets, the trademark on the swinging curtains of the shops, the decorations on chinaware, the call of the street vendor, the cap of the soldier, the pleated skirt of the schoolgirl. Each points back to some well-known tale of how or why. Even the narrow blue and white towels of the jinriksha man and the layered lunchbox of the workman bear designs suggesting an ancient poem or a bit of folklore, as familiar to every Japanese child as are the melodies of Mother Goose to the children of America. One afternoon at a small reception, a lady spoke pleasantly to me of the healthfulness to the foot of a shoe like my sandal. What? One afternoon at a small reception, a lady spoke pleasantly to me of the healthfulness to the foot of a shoe, like my sandal, and then referred with disapproval to the high heels and pointed toes then in vogue. I understand what this sentence is saying, but I don't feel like it's written correctly. This lady is saying, well, it looks like those shoes that you're wearing, your sandal shoe, is good for your feet, but pointed shoes are not good for your feet, and that's what's popular right now. But that sentence was really something. Why are these shapes worn? I asked. What started them? Oh, for no reason, she replied. Just a fashion. Like you're folding your dress over your left hand. But there is a reason for that, I said. It is only a corpse It is only on a corpse that the kimono is folded over from the right. That interested her, and we had a short talk on the peculiarity of Japanese always honoring the left above the right in everything, from the imperial throne to the tying of a knot. Then, lightly touching the back of my sash, she said, "Would you mind telling me what this bundle is for? Is it to carry the babies on?" I wish I had shoe knowledge to drop in my wisdom. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward that the regular sandal is going to be a little bit healthier than your pointed high heels. Cakes, hello! Good evening, welcome in. I hope you're ready to snuggle up. We have Etsuko here is asking many questions about why things are done the way they are in America. And I fucks with it. Oh, you is? Well, that's good. I am so glad that you is. We got some Raspberry Zinger tonight. Some Raspberry Zinger, a classic. Absolute classic. But we also have, pumpkin ale too, so a little bit of both today, a little bit of both. Got a huge thing of goldfish at Costco. Holy shit. You are one lucky dude. I wish I had a huge thing of goldfish. I had a regular size thing of goldfish, but I ate like most of the fish, so. Pumpkin ale, what are you, a wizard? Do you have to be a wizard to have pumpkin ale? Really? Eli, good afternoon, or evening. I'm sorry, it's not afternoon at all. It's like 9 p.m. I'm not sure why I said that. You are all just in time. Thank you so much for being here. And get cozy, get comfy, get your tea. You have chai and cheesecake. You got the important CHs, except cheesecake's kind of gross. I thought we were talking in Dawn's stream about cheesecake. I thought you said that you also didn't like cheesecake. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. It was a couple weeks ago. Maybe I'm misremembering. I hate cheesecake. Yuck. Chai, though? S tier. S tier. Oh, you made a call for cheesecake. I must have been thinking of someone else. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were so passionate about cheesecake. You're in Ohio? Oh my god, that's crazy because so is Etsu. Etsu's also in Ohio, so you are in the right place to be listening to this story. And I'm also from Ohio, so what part of Ohio? I mean, I don't know if you mind me asking, but I'm assuming you're just visiting, so if you don't mind me asking, what part of Ohio are you in? You don't have to answer. It's totally okay, if not. Totally lost my place on this page, too. It was dying. That was my second guess. After I said maybe I'm wrong, I thought maybe it was dying after all. I think that day dying also had a pink name. It's all the pink name gang all ganging up on me. At least Connor finally. Oh, Connor's back to pink too. You're all too pink for me. Alright, we're discussing shoes. Oh no, okay, she was asking why she's wearing the sash on her kimono. Asked if it was for carrying babies. Oh no, I replied. It is my sash, and it is only an ornament. A baby is carried in a hammock-like scarf swung from the nurse's shoulders. This material of your sash is very beautiful, she said. May I ask why you arranged it that flat pad against spreading... May I ask why you arrange it in that flat pad instead of spreading it out so that the design can be seen? The Akron area? Oh my god, that's so crazy. That's not far from where I grew up. I don't live there anymore, but I grew up in Youngstown, which is only about 40 minutes from Akron, so that's pretty crazy. Going hiking for a few days for spring break. You're going hiking in the Akron area? Ooh. It's probably pretty cold there still. But I'm glad that you're having spring break coming up. It seems like just moments ago that you were on winter break. Time's going real fast right now. Ooh. Since she seemed really interested, I willingly explained the various styles of tying a sash for persons differing in age, rank, and occupation, and for different occasions. Then came the final question. Why do you have so much goods in it? That pleased me, for to a Japanese, the material beauty of an article is always secondary to its symbolism. I told her of the original meaning of the 12-inch width and the 12-foot length and explained how it represented much of the mythology and astrology of ancient Oriental belief. This is very interesting, she said as she turned to go, especially about the signs of the zodiac and all that. But it's a shame to hide so much of that magnificent brocade by folding it in. And don't you think yourself, little lady, and she gave me a merry smile, that it's positively wicked to buy so many yards of lovely goods just to be wasted and useless? And as she walked away with a long train of expensive velvet trailing behind her on the floor. It is in fact cold. Should clear up in the next couple of days. And Dawn's having a blizzard. It was pretty cold today here too. It's been warm. Like I've been out on the porch, I've had the windows open, and then today I woke up shivering with my blanket not being warm enough. So looks like we're having a little bit of a, second winter burst coming through. That's okay though. It's only March. We got some time. We got some time left here before it gets to be 200 degrees here. Mother's furniture, which was of beautiful wood and some of it carved, at first made me feel as if I were in a museum. But when I went to other homes, I found that none were simple and plain. Many reminded me of go-downs, so crowded were they with not only chairs, tables, and pictures, but numbers of little things. Small statues, empty vases, shells, and framed photographs, as well as really rare and costly ornaments, all scattered about with utter disregard, according to Japanese standards, of order and appropriateness. It was several months before I could overcome the impression that the disarranged profusion of articles was a temporary convenience, and that very soon they would be returned to the godown. Most of these objects were beautiful, but some of them were the shape of a shoe or the sole of a foot. This seemed to be the favorite design, or else my unwilling eyes always spied it out, for in almost every house I entered I would see it in a paperweight, a vase, or some other small article. Once I even saw a little wooden shoe used as a holder for toothpicks. Generations of prejudice made this very objectionable to me, for in Japan, the feet are the least honored part of the body, and the most beautiful or costly gift would lose all value if it had the shape of footwear. And Japanese curios, they were everywhere and in the most astonishingly inappropriate surroundings. Lunchboxes and rice bowls on the parlor tables, cheap roll pictures hanging on elegant walls, shrine gongs used for dining room table bells, sword guards for paperweights, ink boxes for handkerchief and letter boxes for gloves, marriage cups for pin trays, and even little bamboo spittoons I have seen used to hold flowers. In time, my stubborn mind learned to some extent to separate an article from its surroundings, and then I began to see its artistic worth with the eyes of an American. Also, I acquired the habit, whenever I saw absurd things here which evidently arose from little knowledge of Japan, of trying to recall a similar absurdity in Japan regarding foreign things. And I never failed to find more than one to offset each single instance here. One time, a recollection was forced upon me by an innocent question from a young lady who told me, in a tone of disbelief, that she had heard in a lecture on Japan that elegantly dressed Japanese ladies sometimes wore ordinary, cheap, chenille table covers around their shoulders in place of scarves. I could only laugh and acknowledge that, a few years before, that had been a popular fashion. Imported articles were rare and expensive, and since we never used table covers ourselves, we had no thought of there being anything but beautiful shawls. I had not the courage to tell her that I had worn one myself, but I did tell her, however, of something that occurred in my home in Nagaoka when I was a child. I need to look up what chenille? I don't know what this word is. We gotta put it in the new words list. This is our second new word of the session already. A velvety cord of yarn or silk or worsted for embroidery, fringes, etc. Here it comes, here it comes. Number 2. There we go. We'll add it to the new words list. Number 2 for the day. Actually, did we learn a new word last time? Because I don't think I added it to the list. Might have fucked up. Josh needs to learn. Did Josh get beaten up yet? No, Josh has not been mentioned once again yet at all. No mention of Josh. The only time they mentioned him was, she said, I went with Mother Matsuo, and I went somewhere. No more mention of this guy. He needs a foot up his ass. Second semester of foot history. What was here? We did... I think I need to go back and see what what word we learned last time so I can add it to the list, because I don't think I did my job last time, so I gotta update the list. Really slacking off here. On my father's return from one of his visits to the capital, he brought Ishi and Kin each a large Turkish towel with a colored border and a deep fringe. The maids, their hearts swelling with pride, went to temple service wearing the towel around their shoulders. I can see them yet as they walk proudly out of the gateway, the white length spread evenly over their best dresses, and the fringe dangling in its stiff newness above their long Japanese sleeves. It would be a funny sight to me now, but then I was lost in admiration, and it seemed perfectly natural that they should be, as they were, the envy of all beholders. Of all my experiences in trying to see Japanese things with American eyes, one particularly inharmonious combination was a foolishly annoying trial to me for many months. The first time I called on Mrs. Hoyt, the hostess of an especially beautiful home, my eyes were drawn to a lovely carved maganote. What the hell is a maganote? They gotta stop giving me these new words. I don't know what these things mean. What is a maganote? It's not even in dictionary.com. It's Mago Notes. No. There's nothing there. Mago Notes? Mago Notes. Doesn't exist. Don't know what it means. We'll just have to use our imaginations. A lovely carved magonote, hand of grandchild it is called in Japan, but in America it has the practical name Scratch My Back, which was hanging by its silk cord on the cover of an ebony cabinet. It's a back scratcher. It's a back scratcher. Okay. Beside it, thrown carelessly over the same cord, was a rosary of crystal and coral beads. The little ivory finger rake was exquisitely carved, and the rosary of rare pink coral and flawless crystal, but to the eye of an Oriental, all beauty was ruined by the strange arrangement. It was like putting the Bible and a toothbrush side by side on a parlor table. I did not criticize the judgment of the hostess. Her superior taste in all things artistic was beyond question. And in America, I'm wondering if this is a Japanese word. Magonote? If it is, I'm not familiar with it still, but I guess I don't know the word for back scratcher. Was an object of art only. From that viewpoint, it was properly placed. I realized this, and yet, whenever afterward I entered that room, I persistently kept my eyes turned away from the ebony cabinet. It was only after 2 years of close friendship with the hostess that I had the courage to tell her of my shocked visit to her home. She laughs at me even yet, and I laugh too, but there is a warm feeling of satisfaction in my heart this moment as I remember the rosary and the maganote no longer hang side by side. You think it is Japanese? That makes sense because it doesn't exist anywhere else on the internet. I guess we have all now learned the Japanese word back scratcher. So you're all welcome. There was another thing in Mrs. Hoyt's home which was removed at the same time the rosary and the hand of grandchild parted company. It was a large colored photograph of a scene in Japan, not an ancient print, but a modern photograph. It was an attractive picture in graceful arrangement and delicate coloring, and my hostess had placed it in a conspicuous place. Her ignorant eyes beheld only its artistic beauty, but my heart turned sick with shame. That picture would never have been allowed in any respectable house in Japan, for it was the photograph of a well-known courtesan of Tokyo taken in the door of her professional home. Oh, why do Japanese sell those things? I shudderingly asked myself, but immediately came the puzzling response. Why do Americans want to buy? One day, I went into the city with a friend to do some shopping. We were on a streetcar when my attention was attracted by a little girl sitting opposite us who was eating something. Children in Japan do not eat on the street or in a public place, and I did not know then that it is not the custom in America, as it is with us, never to eat except at a table. My friend and I were busy talking, so for a while I did not notice the child, but when I chanced to glance at her again, I was surprised to see that she was still eating. 2 or 3 times afterward I looked at her, and finally I turned to my friend. I wonder what that child is eating, I said. She is not eating anything, my friend replied. She is chewing gum. Again, I looked at the child. She was sitting, drooped and weary, her loose hands lying in her lap and her feet spread around her bundle in a very awkward and difficult position. As I watched her tired face, suddenly I remembered something that had happened on the train on my trip across the continent. Is she sick? I asked. No, I think not. Why do you ask? I think I took that medicine on the train, I replied. Oh no, my friend said, laughing. Chewing gum is not medicine. It is a sort of wax, just to chew. Why does she do it? I asked. Oh, most children of her class chew gum, more or less. It is not an elegant thing to do. I don't allow my children to touch it. I said nothing more, but a partial light began to dawn upon my experience on the train. I had been uncomfortably carsick, and Mrs. Holmes had given me a small, flat block of fragrant medicine, which she said would cure nausea. I put it in my mouth and chewed a long time, but I could not swallow it. After a while, I got tired, and Mrs. Holmes was still eating hers, so concluding that it must be a medicine possessing a wonderful merit, as it would not dissolve, I wrapped it carefully in a piece of white tissue paper and put it in the little mirror case that I wore in my sash. I never heard what originated this peculiar custom, but I think I never found anything odd in America for which I could not find an equivalent in Japan. Gum chewing reminded me of hodzuki blowing, a habit common among some Japanese children, and also much practiced by tea-house girls and women of humble class. The hodzuki is made from a little red berry having a smooth, tough peeling. The core is very soft with proper care, can be squeezed out, leaving the unbroken peeling in the shape of a tiny round lantern. This little ball is elastic, and though it has no special taste, children love to hold it in the mouth and by gently blowing the hollow shell, make what they call mouth music. It sounds somewhat like the soft, distant croaking of a pond frog. Hodzuki blowing is not beautiful music, nor is it a pretty custom, but it is neither harmful nor unclean. The worst that can be said of it is what many a nurse calls to her charge. Take that squeaky thing out of your mouth, it will make your lips pouty and ugly. I love the idea of her being like, does this have a word in English? I don't know, I don't care, that's their problem. The thing is, she did translate it. She did say she said it's called a scratch my back in English. Scratch my back. She also translated it to hand of grandchild in Japanese. Oh, mago no te. Oh, that's what, it is hand of grandchild. Oh, it all is clear to me suddenly in my head. That's literally what it means. Okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. That's 3 words, so it didn't make any sense to me to see it all written in, English letters smashed together looking like Maganote. Makes sense now. We figured it out. We've solved the problem. Hand of grandchild. Do you use your grandchild's hand to scratch your back? Yes, I did. I did get my ears lowered, as they say, Connor. I did. Isn't it quid pro quo? What do you mean? Quid pro quo? In regard to what? What do we use that in regard to? Oh, in regard to what Connor said? Oh, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Yeah, but this is a literal back scratcher, like a... quid pro quo. Yeah, like in business. But no, they're talking about an actual, like, I think like a stick that you use to, like, scratch your back. A butt scratcher, I don't know. I can reach my own butt. I don't know if I can reach I definitely can't reach my whole back. Do you need a hand of grandchild to scratch your butt cakes? Is that what I'm hearing from you? You need to get a hand of grandchild? That was the end of chapter... Oh my gosh, I'm losing track of these Roman numerals. That was 18. Silent viewer reporting for duty. Jonas, welcome. Welcome, silent viewer reporting for duty. I know that guy too. It's so crazy. Thanks for coming in. I hope that you're all cozy and ready to get tucked in and listen. You missed the first chapter for the night, but that's okay because we're about to start the next chapter, chapter 19. And it's called Thinking. So get retrospective or introspective or whatever the fuck, because we're gonna do some thinking. At the broad corner where our front and side porches joined was where my hammock swung. It was shaded by a big apple tree, and I used to put in a big cushion and sit Japanese fashion while I read. I could never get used to lying in it, as Mother sometimes did, but I like to imagine that I was in an open kago, a quiet, not a swaying one, and watch for glimpses between the trees of carriages and country teams that passed occasionally on the road beyond the big evergreens in the stone wall. From there, too, I could look across the little stretch of green and on through the break made by the lilac hedge by the drawbridge to the home of our nearest neighbor. We did not have many close neighbors, for our suburb was a wide-spreading one, and the houses far apart, each set in the midst of its own stretch of lawn and shrubbery. Many of these lawns were separated from each other by only a narrow graveled path or a carriage road. I loved these fenceless homes. In Japan, I had never known of a home not enclosed by walls of stone or plaster. Even humble village huts had hedges of brushwood or bamboo. One of the odd fancies of my childhood was to imagine how wonderful it would be if, without warning, all hedges should fall and the hidden gardens be suddenly revealed to every passerby. In my American home, I felt that my childhood wish had come true. The fences were all down, the flowers and grass free for all to see and enjoy. Then my mind drifted to the gardens of Japan, where the shut-in beauty for the few. That's a really weird... Yeah, when I was a kid, I just wished that all of the hedges would fall over. That's like such a weird thing to say. I think that's a weird thing to think about when you're a small child, too. I was thinking all this one pleasant afternoon as I sat in the hammock, sewing, while Mother was tying up the crimson rambler that covered part of the porch with a curtain of green. Mother, I said suddenly as a new thought came to me, did you ever think of a Japanese woman as being in prison with the key to her cell in her pocket and not unlocking the door because it would not be a polite thing to do? Why, no, said Mother, surprised. What are you thinking, Etsu? That idea came to me the day I went to my first afternoon tea. Do you remember? Yes, indeed, said Mother, smiling. God, I can't turn this page. You looked like a drooping blossom as you came up the path with Miss Helen. She said that everyone was there and that you were the belle of the ball, and then you sat down on the porch step and quietly remarked that people here were just like their lawns. I never quite understood what she meant. I shall never forget that day, I said. All the time I was dressing to go, I pictured how the ladies would look, sitting in Miss Anderson's parlor in their pretty dresses and wavy hair, talking pleasantly the way they do when we make calls. But they did not sit at all. It was like being in the street, for they all kept on their hats and gloves and stood in groups or walked around the crowded rooms, all talking at once. I was so confused by the buzz of voices that my head was really dizzy, but it was all intensely interesting and not exactly undignified. People asked me queer questions, but everyone was kind and everyone was happy. Was it the noise and the excitement that tired you so? Asked Mother. Oh no, I liked it. It was a happy noise. I like everything. But on the way home, Miss Helen asked me to tell her about Our Lady's receptions in Japan. I could see in my mind just how everyone used to look at an anniversary celebration in my home in Nagaoka. Mother sitting so gentle and stately, and all the ladies in their ceremonial dresses, having a quietly nice time and expressing every emotion in a kind of suppressed way by smiles and bows and a few gestures, for at a formal gathering in Japan it is rude to laugh aloud or to move too much. It is beautiful and restful, said Mother. But it is not nature, I cried, sitting upright in my excitement. I've been thinking about it ever since. Our conventionality is too extreme. It is narrowing to the soul. I hate to be so happy here, and all those patient, subdued women sitting hushed in their quiet homes. Our lives in Japan, a man's as well as a woman's, are like our tied-down trees, our shut-in gardens, our... I stopped abruptly, then added slowly, I am growing too outspoken and American-like. It does not suit my training. Isn't that, like, exactly what she's saying? You want to pull the fences down too suddenly, dear, said Mother gently. The flowers of Japan have blossomed into a shadowy garden, and a sudden, bright sunlight might kill their beauty and develop them into strong, coarse weeds. It is only morning there now. The blossoms will grow with the light, and by noon, the fences will have fallen. Don't pull them down too suddenly. Mother leaned over the hammock and, for the first time, kissed me softly on the brow. She's like, damn, that Ohio is really coming out. Yeah. But, you know, when you think about it, when people just, like, pull these analogies out of their asses in, like, stories and movies, like, ah, yes, do not be like the weeds growing in the morning light. You must wait until the shrubs fall down in the afternoon. No one talks like that. No one ever just randomly said that to you. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't believe that. I know it was a different time. I know this is, like, 1890, but, like, I still can't imagine this lady just pulling that out, like, out of thin air, just like, oh yes, I have this perfect analogy for this moment. I've been saving this one, actually. I've been waiting for you to say it so I could pull this analogy out of my ass. No. I mean, probably people were better educated than I was now. But, like, in ways, no. But in ways, probably yes. Like, they went to, like, I don't know. They probably studied shit that helped them pull analogies out of their asses a little bit better. But, I don't know. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. One time I went with some lady friends to see Ellen Terry in The Merchant of Venice. It was an afternoon performance, and after the play we went to some place and had tea. The ladies were all enthusiastic in their praise of the great actress, but I could say nothing, for that afternoon was one of the great disappointments of my life. I had been quite excited over seeing for the very first time a Western actress of worldwide fame, and had formed a picture in my mind of a modest young doctor of laws who would walk across the stage with a slow-moving ceremony and with a grave dignity and deliver the wonderful monologue. Of course, I unconsciously pictured the Japanese ideal. Instead, a tall figure in scarlet gown and cap, which reminded me of the dress of the Japanese clown, swept onto the stage with a freedom and naturalness that belong only to the common class people of Japan. Portia talked too loud and fast for a lady of elegance and culture, even in disguise. And the gestures, oh, most of all the vigorous, man-like gestures, I had no impression but one of shocked surprise. The beautiful moonlight scene where Jessica meets her lover, and also the last act where the two husbands recognize their wives, were full of too many kisses and seemed to be most indelicate. I wished I was not there to see. In the midst of the conversation, one of the ladies who had watched me rather curiously during the last scene turned to me. Do you have love scenes on the Japanese stage? She asked. Oh yes, I answered. Our stage shows life as it is, and Japanese are just like other people. But your face got crimson, little lady, and you looked as if you have never seen a lover before, she said smilingly. I explained as well as I could that for generations we have been taught that strong emotional expression is not consistent with elegance and dignity. That does not mean that we try to repress our feelings, only that public expression of them is bad form. Therefore, on our stage, the love scenes are generally so demure and quiet that an American audience would not be thrilled at all. But the dignified bearing of our actors has a strong effect on Japanese people, for they understand that feeling that is not shown. What do lovers do when they are, well, very enthusiastic? Asked a young lady. They gently turn their backs to each other, I replied. Turn their backs to each other? My stars! Was the very peculiar exclamation of the young lady. In a moment she turned to me again. Is it really true, she asked, that in Japan there is no kissing even between husband and wife? There is bowing, you know, I replied. That is our mode of heart expression. But you don't mean that your mother never kissed you, exclaimed a young lady. What did she do when you came to America? Only bowed, I replied, and then she said to me very gently, A safe journey for you, my daughter. I had not been here long enough then to understand the odd expression that came over the faces of the ladies, nor the moment's silence that followed before the conversation drifted into other channels. When I was at a cosplay convention, I did Peter saying that, and people made videos of me. I'm so ashamed of you. I was 21, it was a different time. Don, you're gonna have to send it. Cakes is right. You gotta send that, not just to Cakes, you gotta send it to us all. I don't care if you were 21. You're still not 35 yet, so you're still in the same age range. Once you're 35, though, then those videos can disappear forever. I don't make the rules. That's just how it is. Whew. So, your mother doesn't even give you a hug when you leave to the US. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. I don't have them. I was waiting in line and people started recording me and searching the web for traces. As a former cosplayer, I can tell you they're out there. They're out there. Depends on the convention, probably, but they're out there. Bowing is not only bending the body, it has a spiritual side also. One does not bow exactly the same to father, younger sister, friend, servant, and child. My mother's long, dignified bow and gentle-voiced farewell held no lack of deep love. I felt keenly each heartthrob, and every other person present also recognized the depth of hidden emotion. Japanese people are not demonstrative. Until late years, the repression of strong emotion was carefully drilled into the mind and life of every Japanese child of the better class. There is much more freedom now than formerly, but the influence of past training is seen everywhere. In art, in literature, and in the customs of daily life. With all the cheerful friendliness of everyday intercourse, there is a certain stiffness of etiquette which holds in check all exuberance of expression. It dictates the ceremonies of birth and the ceremonies of death, and guides everything between. Working, playing, eating, sleeping, walking, running, laughing, crying, every motion is chained, and by one's own wish with the shackles of politeness. A merry girl will laugh softly behind her sleeves. A hurt child chokes back his tears and sobs out, "I am not crying." A stricken mother will smile as she tells you that her child is dying. A distressed servant will giggle as she confesses having broken your treasured piece of china. This is most mystifying to a foreigner, but it means only an effort to keep the background. A display of one's own feelings would be rudeness. Eam Fizz! Eam Fizz! You're saying hello to all the deers. Well, welcome, welcome. You're just in time. I'm not sure what you're just in time for, but you're just in time. You're not in time for the first chapter or even the second chapter, but you're in time. How are you doing tonight is the real question. And did you bring your pillow? Just kidding, it's still only 9:30. But if you don't have your pillow, you should still get pretty comfy, because even if you're not going to sleep yet, it's nice to be comfy while you get a story read to you, right? When American people judge the degree of affection between Japanese husband and wife by their conduct to each other, they make a great mistake. It would be as bad form for a man to express approval for his wife or children as it would be for him to praise any other part of himself. And every wife takes pride in conducting herself according to the rigid rules of etiquette, which recognize dignity and humility as the virtues that reflect greatest glory on the home of which she is mistress. One other thing may explain some seeming peculiarities. The Japanese language has no pronouns, their place being taken by adjectives. A humble or a derogatory adjective means my, and a complimentary one means your. A husband will introduce his wife with some such words as these: "Pray bestow honorable glance upon foolish wife." By this he simply means, "I want you to meet my wife." A father will speak of his children as ignorant son or untrained daughter when his heart is overflowing with pride and tenderness. I shall never forget my first experience in seeing kissing between man and woman. It was on my trip across the continent when I came from Japan. A seat near me was occupied by a young lady, very prettily dressed and with gentle, almost timid manners. She was a young married woman returning from her first visit to the parents. I was much attracted by her free yet modest actions and planned how I would try to imitate her. One morning I noticed that she was dressed with unusual care, and it was evident that she was nearing the end of her journey. Finally, the train began to slow down, and she watched out of the window with eager interest. The train had barely come to a stand when in rushed a young man who threw his arms around that modest, sweet girl and kissed her several times. As she did not mind it, but blushed and laughed, and they went off together. I cannot express my feelings, but I could not help recalling what my mother said to me just before I started for America. "I have heard, my daughter, that it is the custom for foreign people to lick each other as dogs do." That's funny. You beat Mopper so hard at the Oscars betting, so you're doing fantastic. What movie are you gonna make her watch? Since that was part of your bet, right? So she has to watch a movie of your choosing. What are you gonna recommend for her that she hasn't seen already? That's a shocking part, or the difficult part, I guess. Her mom thought that people kissing was licking each other like dogs. She's kind of not wrong. There was no criticism in my mother's heart, nothing but wonder. I repeat her words only as an illustration of how an unfamiliar custom may appear to the eyes of a stranger. Years of residence in this country have taught me that the American mode of heart expression has its spiritual side just as bowing has. I now understand that a kiss expresses kindness or gratitude, friendship or love, each of which is a sacred whisper from heart to heart. Matsuo was very fond of Mother, and often, when he had received a new assignment of goods from Japan, he would select something especially pretty or appropriate and bring it to her. Once he gave her a small lacquer box which looked something like an old-fashioned medicine case hung from the sash by people of ancient time. The outside was marked with lines corresponding to the partitions of the medicine case, but when I opened it, I saw that instead of being a succession of layers, it was an open box divided into two upright partitions to hold playing cards. The lacquer was poor and the work roughly done, but it was an ingenious idea to make a box to hold a means of pleasure in imitation of a case to hold a cure for pain. What original people Americans are, I said, but I didn't know that lacquer was made here. Matsuo turned the little box over, and on the bottom I saw a label, Made in Japan. A few days later, I went down to Matsuo's store and he showed me the whole shelves of articles called Japanese, the sight of which would have filled any inhabitant of Japan with a puzzled wonder as to what the strange European articles could be. They were all marked Made in Japan. Matsuo said that they had been designed by Americans in shapes suitable for use in the country, then made to order in Japanese factories and shipped direct to America without having been seen in Japan outside the factory. That troubled me, but Matsuo shrugged his shoulders. As long as Americans want them, design them, order them, and are satisfied, there will be merchants to supply, he said. But they are not Japanese things. No, he replied, but genuine things do not sell. People think they are too frail and not gay enough. Then he added slowly, the only remedy is an education, and that will have to begin here. We're gonna make her watch Blade Runner 2049, my favorite. I still haven't seen that. Are you gonna make me watch that one of these days? I'm searching pretty hard, but the mythical cosplay video of me might be lost to time. Could be deep in Tumblr somewhere. What were you cosplaying? Did you say above? I forgot already. What were you cosplaying? Tumblr's still there. I mean, a lot of posts were removed, but Tumblr's still there, so I mean, it could be out there somewhere. Blade Runner would make me shed tears. Well, that's possible. I am a crybaby. That night, I lay awake a long time thinking. Of course, artistic, appreciative persons are few in comparison to the masses, who like heavy vases of green and gold, boxes of cheap lacquer, and gay fans with pictures of a laughing girl with flower hairpins. But if Japan lowers her artistic standards, I sighed, what can she hope for from the world? All that she has or is comes from her art ideals and her pride. Ambition, workmanship, courtesy, all are folded within those two words. I once knew a workman, one who was paid by the job, not by the hour, to voluntarily undo half a day's work at the cost of much heavy lifting, just to alter by a few inches the position of a stepping stone in a garden. That sounds like me in Minecraft. Like, I place one block wrong and like the entire fucking building is broken and I have to tear down the whole goddamn thing and rebuild it 6 times. That sentence just was the essential Minecraft experience. After it was placed to his satisfaction, he wiped the perspiration from his face, then took out a tiny pipe and squatted down nearby to waste still more unpaid for time in gazing at the rest stone with pleasure and satisfaction in every line of his kindly old face. As I thought of the old man, I wondered if it was worthwhile to exchange this delight of heart pride in one's work for anything. My mind mounted from the gardener to the workman, teacher, statesman. It is the same with all. To degrade one's pride, to lose one's hold on the best after having had it, is death to the soul growth of a man or a nation. I think at the time I was in my Cube cosplay, which is why everyone was so surprised about the Peter Griffin voice. I have pictures but no videos. Well, at least send the pictures, Donathan. At least send the pictures. You know what you gotta do. I'll share some of my cosplay pictures if I can dig them up. I'm sure Emily has them. Because I met Emily through cosplaying. I don't cosplay anymore, but those days are, I guess, behind me for now. I enjoy making cosplay props, though. Just not actually cosplaying itself. That was the end of chapter 19, guys, of thinking. I don't feel like... I don't know if the word thinking was... I mean, I guess it sort of envisioned that chapter. I'll also share cosplay photos of Brian, but not of yourself. You gotta share us both. This is my first time in low effort. I am embarrassed. That's okay. It's okay. We've seen a lot of bad cosplayers, me and Emily, in our day. We've seen them. It's okay. I don't know who Kyubey is, unless you're talking about the... Isn't that the fox from Naruto? Kyubey? But you didn't spell it like that. I'm gonna Google Kyubey spelled like you did. What? So when I searched Kyubey like you did, I got this weird little cat things, and I don't think that that is probably what you cosplayed, because this is a small animal. Are you a furry, Dawn? It's okay if you are. Furries are kind of cool. But I don't see you being a furry for this little white thing. Unless. I did human Kyubey from Madoka. Kyubey human. You did? Well, you gotta send it. I'm ready to see this. I'm ready to see it. I'm ready to see it. Post the pictures. Send them. Let's go. Alright, we'll probably do one more chapter here. I said I was probably going to go for an hour because of the circumstances of the day, but we're already over an hour, and I'm not quite done yet, so we'll read one more chapter. Mac from My Little Pony? Mac? Like Macintosh? Applejack's brother? Brother? Cousin? Brussin? I think that's her brother. I watched My Little Pony like 10 years ago, actually. I've never played Persona 4, and I've never seen Madoka. But I want to see the pictures. I want to see Dawn's first cosplay attempt. I demand it. I demand to see it. Send them in the Hatebeat Discord so we can all see, we can all enjoy. Wait, what are you sending? What are you sending of me? Are you sending us as Gon and Killua? Oh, they were group cosplays. You were just fitting in. Oh, that's cute. That's nice of you to do. It's always hard when you have, like, everyone in your group wants to, like, do a specific thing, and then you're, like, missing people. And then you have somebody who's, like, not committed to anything. They're just like, yeah, I'll do whatever. I only had that instance once when I did a Zelda group. And Emily did Zelda because she didn't care about Zelda at all. Thanks, Emily. So we're going to chapter 20. It's called Neighbors. Hunter x Hunter, Doki Doki Literature Club. You're sending the Doki Doki Literature Club? That's fine. That's fine. They're out on the internet anyway. When I came to America, I expected to learn many things, but I had no thought that I was going to learn anything but Japan. Yet our neighbors, by their questions and remarks, were teaching me every day new ways of looking at my own country. My closest friend was the daughter of a retired statesman, the general, we called him, who lived just across the steep little ravine which divided our grounds from his. Is my music off? Oh no, it's just quiet. It's just quiet. They're just doing a little quiet song. Sorry, I got concerned. Because I don't have anything in my ears, so I have no idea. I can't hear the music that you guys are hearing. Hope it's good. Hope you guys are having a nice time out there. Anyway, my closest friend was the daughter of a retired statesman, the general we called him, who lived just across the steep little ravine which divided our grounds from his. Our side was bordered by a hedge of purple lilacs, broken opposite the path to the well by a rustic drawbridge. One autumn afternoon, I was sitting on the shady step of the bridge when a many-stamped package in my lap, watching for the postman. Just about that hour, his funny little wagon, looking with its open side doors like a high, stiff cargo, would be passing on its return trip down the hill, and I was anxious to hurry off my package of white cotton brocade and ribbons of various patterns and colors, the most prized gifts I could send to Japan. Suddenly, I heard a gay voice behind me reciting in a high sing-song, "Open your mouth and shut your eyes, and I'll give you something to make you wise." I looked up at a charming picture. My bright-eyed friend in a white dress and big lacy hat was standing on the bridge holding in her cupped hands 3 or 4 grape leaves pinned together with thorns. On this rustic plate were piled some bunches of luscious purple grapes. Wow, everyone was in here. Oh, Jess, I hope your stream went well. This is a shadow raid. She raids with just herself. Yeah, that's why I had to depart earlier. Sorry I didn't stay longer, but I had my scheduled stream too, sorry. Hope you and Eileen had a good time in Fortnite, though. If you guys don't follow Jess, go follow Jess. She didn't raid me properly, just a shadow raid, but we love it still. We love it. I love to see it here, Jess. Thank you. But go follow Jess if you don't follow her already. She would love to have you. Ahem. Oh, how pretty, I exclaimed. This is just the way Japanese serve fruit. And this is the way they carry flowers, she said, putting down the grapes on the step and releasing big bunches of long-stemmed tiger lilies from under her arm. Why do Japanese always carry flowers upside down? I laughed and said, it looked very odd to me when I first came to see everybody carrying flowers with the tops up. Why do you? Why they look prettier so, and that's the way they grow. That was true, and yet I had never before thought of anyone's caring for the appearance of flowers that were being carried. We Japanese have a way of considering a thing invisible until it is settled in its proper place. Japanese seldom carry flowers, I said, except to the temple or to graves. We get flowers for the house from flower vendors who go from door to door with baskets swung from shoulder poles, but we do not send flowers as gifts, and we never wear them. Ketamine, hello, good evening. Well, good morning for you, huh? Is it the middle of the night? It's the middle of the night for you? We had daylight savings today, so my time's changed a little bit. So I think it's even earlier in the morning for you than it is normally. But welcome in. Maybe you're heading off to bed soon here. But if you are, you're in time for a little bedtime story, so snuggle up. Why? Asked Miss Helen. Because they wither and fade, and so to tend flowers to a sick friend would be the worst omen in the world. Oh, what a lot of pleasure your poor invalids in hospitals are losing, said Miss Helen, and Japan is the land of flowers. Surprised and thoughtful, I sat silent, but in a moment was aroused by a question. What were you thinking of when I came, sitting here so quietly with that big bundle on your lap? You looked like a lovely, dainty, picturesque little peddler. My thoughts are very unlike those of a peddler, I replied. As I sat here watching the dangling end of the bridge chain, I was thinking of a Japanese lover of long ago who crossed a drawbridge 99 times to win his ladylove. And the 100th time, in a blinding snowstorm, he failed to see that it was lifted and so fell to his death in the moat below. How tragic, exclaimed Miss Helen. What did the poor lady do? It was her fault, I said. She was vain and ambitious, and when she saw a chance to win the love of a high official at court, she changed her mind about her lover and commanded her attendants not to lower the bridge the day he expected to come triumphant. You don't mean that the cold-blooded creature actually planned his death? It was the storm that caused his death, I said. She was fickle, but not wicked. She thought that when he found the bridge lifted, he would know her answer and go away. Well, sometimes our girls over here are fickle enough, dear knows, said Miss Helen, but no American woman would ever do a thing like that. She was actually a murderess. It's 4:44 right now, and that's exactly why you came here. Well, goodness, you close your little peepers. You'll be asleep in no time. Oh, you posted the 3 you can find? Great, I can't wait to check them out. I'll check them out soon, once we're done here. Did you see the ones Emily posted? I haven't seen them yet. I was shocked at such a practical way of looking at my romantic tale, and hastened to add that remorseful Lady Komachi became a nun and spent her life in making pilgrimage to various temples to pray for the dead. At last, she partially lost her mind and, as a wandering beggar, lived and died among the humble villagers on the slopes of Mount Fuji. Her fate is held up by priests, I concluded, as a warning to all the fickle-minded maidens. Well, said Miss Helen, drawing a deep breath, I think she paid pretty dearly for her foolishness, don't you? Why, well, perhaps, I replied, rather surprised at the question. But we are taught that if a woman so loses her gentle modesty that she can treat with scorn and disrespect the plea of a loyal lover, she is no longer a worthy woman. Suppose a man jilts a maid, what then? Quickly asked Miss Helen. Is he no longer considered a worthy man? I did not know how to reply. Instinctively, I upheld myself to the teachings of my childhood that man is the protector and guide and woman the helper, the self-respecting but nevertheless uncritical, dutiful helper. Often afterward, Miss Helen and I had heart-to-heart talks in which her questions and remarks surprised and sometimes disturbed me. Many of our customs I had taken for granted, accepting the ways of our ancestors without any thought except that thus they had been and still were. When I began to question myself about things which had always seemed simple and right because they were in accordance with laws made by our wise rulers, sometimes I was puzzled and sometimes I was frightened. I am afraid that I am growing very bold and manlike, I would think to myself, but God gave me a brain to use, else why do I have it? All my childhood I had hidden my deepest feelings. Now again it was the same. My American mother would have understood. But I did not know, and so, repressing all outward signs, I puzzled my way alone in search of higher ideals. Not for myself, but for Japan. Miss Helen's father was 90 years old when I knew him. He was a wonderful man, tall, with broad shoulders, just a trifle stooped and with thick iron-gray hair and bushy eyebrows. A strong face he had, but gentle and humorous when he talked. I looked upon him as an encyclopedia of American history. I had always loved the study of history in childhood and at school, but I had learned little of the details of America's part in the world and would sit with the general and his invalid wife listening by the hour while he told stories of early American life. Knowing that incidents of personal history especially appealed to me, he once told me that his own large estate was bought by his father from an Indian chief in exchange for 1 chair, a gun, and a pouch of tobacco. And the mother's large home was once an Indian village of bark tents and was purchased for a half-dozen split-seated kitchen chairs. These incidents seemed to be almost prehistoric, for I had never known anyone whose home did not date back into a far past. It's unfair how incredible everyone looked and still does. I can't wait to see which pictures she posted. It's been a while. I haven't cosplayed since 2019. It's been 5 years now, I guess. We had plans to go to a convention in March of 2020, but then COVID happened and everything got locked down and the convention got canceled. And I've never cosplayed again. So that's that. Things are much different now. When America was still a youthful nation, the general had represented his country as a diplomat in Europe, and with his beautiful young wife had taken part in the forum social life in Paris and later in Washington. My first glimpse of American life abroad I received through the word pictures of this gracious lady, and through her experiences I began to understand with sympathy something of the problem in Japan of Americans trying to understand the Japanese, which heretofore I had looked upon only as the problem of Japanese trying to understand Americans. From childhood until I met the general, the word ancient had commanded my reverence. I had been conscious that the Inagaki family tree was rooted in a history centuries old, and that our plots in the cemetery were the oldest in Nagaoka. It had seemed an unquestioned necessity that we should follow the same customs that our ancestors had observed for hundreds of years, and it was my pride that they were the customs of a dynasty which was amongst the very oldest in the world. After I became acquainted with the general and heard him talk of the wonderful development of a nation much younger than my own family tree, the word ancient lost some of its value. Even the general's own lifetime, the years of only one man's life, represented such a marvelous advance in national growth that sometimes I looked upon him almost with awe, wondering how much real value should be attached to antiquity. Perhaps, I sometimes said to myself, it would be better not to look back with such pride to a glorious past, but instead to look forward to a glorious future. One means quiet satisfaction, the other, ambitious work. Yeah, it's like the late 1800s, and she's talking to a 90-year-old man. His life has been like most of the time the US existed. That's insane. Sometimes I think about it, like the fact that the US is such like a young country in comparison to, well, the US as a country as it is now is a young country and compared to so many other places in the world. It's really weird to think about a lot. It's really weird to think about. I'm not saying that, the colonization of North America was great. So, don't take me the wrong way. But it is what it is. It happened. So, there we are. I was 8 in 2012. Oh no, Ketamine, you're a baby. Oh, Ketamine, you're a baby. Oh no. I was about to graduate college in 2012. I didn't know you were such a baby. That's okay. Sometimes people have to be babies. Sometimes people have to be old fucks like me and Don. I have Don here to also call an old fuck, even though he's a little younger than me. One evening after Matsuo and I had been over to call on the general, Miss Helen walked back with us across the drawbridge. Matsuo went on to join Mother on the porch, and Miss Helen and I sat down on the stairs of the bridge, as we often did, to talk. When Father told me the story about Molly Pitcher, said Miss Helen, I wondered if you were thinking about Japanese women. Why? I asked. Well, she replied hesitatingly, several times I've heard you say that American women are like Japanese. I don't see that Molly Pitcher is much of a Japanese specimen. Oh, you don't know Japanese history, I exclaimed. We have many women heroes in Japan. Yes, of course, said Miss Helen quickly. In every country there are heroic women who rise to noble sacrifice on occasion. But they are exceptions. Books and travelers all speak of Japanese women as being quiet, soft-spoken, gentle, and meek. That picture doesn't apply to the American type of women. The training is different, I said, but I think that at the heart they're much the same. Well, said Miss Helen, when it becomes the fashion for us to wear our hearts on our sleeves, perhaps we will appear gentle and meek. But, she added as she rose to go, I don't believe that Japanese men think as you do. Tonight, when I spoke of the book on Japan that I have been reading and said that I believed the author was right when he declared that, for modesty and gentle worth, Japanese women lead the world, your husband smiled and said, thank you, as if he thought so too. Miss Helen, I said earnestly, although our women are pictured as gentle and meek, and although Japanese men will not contradict it, nevertheless it is true that beneath all the gentle meekness, Japanese women are like volcanoes. Miss Helen laughed. You are the only Japanese woman that I ever saw except at the exposition, she said, and I cannot imagine in you or being like I'm gonna start the sentence over because I cannot talk, apparently. You are the only Japanese woman that I ever saw except at the exposition, she said, and I cannot imagine your being like a volcano. However, I'll give in to your superior knowledge. You have had Molly Pitchers among your women, and flirts, that lady what's-her-names whom you told me about the other day, she was a flirt with a vengeance. And now you say that you have volcanoes. Your demure-appearing countrywoman sees to have surprising possibilities. The next time I come over, I'm going to challenge you to give me a specimen of Japanese genuine women's rights woman. What? That sentence was fucked, dude. I'm barely breathing, Kenny. Once you hit 30, it's over. Brian's built different. Neither of us look over late 20s. You know what's crazy is that until I started losing my hair, like 2 years ago, no one thought that I was like older than like 21. So I'm 35, For disclosure, here I am, 35. If I shaved, I would definitely probably still look like I'm 21. Just 21 and balding. You're turning 20 this year? Oh, you are a baby. Did you think I was ancient? Yeah, Connor's not as much of a baby as he lets on. Connor's just a pretend baby. That is easy, I said, laughing in my turn. A genuine women's rights woman is not one who wants her rights, but one who has them. And if that means the right to do men's work, I can easily give you a specimen. We have a whole island of women who do men's work, from planting rice to making laws. Well, what do the men do? Cook, keep house, take care of the children, and do the family washing. You don't mean it, exclaimed Miss Helen, and she sat down again. But I did mean it, and I told her of Hachijo, a little island about 100 miles off the coast of Japan, where the women, tall, handsome, and straight, with their splendid hair coiled in an odd knot at the top of their head, and wearing long, loose gowns bound by a narrow sash tied in front, work in the rice fields, make oil from the camellia seeds, spin and weave a peculiar yellow silk which they carry in bundles on their heads over the mountains, at the same time driving tiny oxen, not much larger than dogs, also laden with rolls of silk to be sent to the mainland to be sold. In addition to all this, they make some of the best laws we have and see that they are properly carried out. In the meantime, the older men of the community, with babies strapped to their backs, go on errands or stand in the street gossiping and swaying to a sing-song lullaby. And the younger ones wash sweet potatoes, cut vegetables, and cook dinner. Or in big aprons with sleeves looped back, splash, rub, and wring out clothes on the edge of a stream. Is that real? Hachijo? Never heard of that. I'm gonna Google it. Hachijo. Whoa. Google's not working. Hachijojima. It is a real island, a volcanic island in the Philippine Sea. We're going on an excursion. I'm on Wikipedia. It only has 7,000 people on the island, and they have their own language, the Hachijo language. But it's an endangered language and the number of speakers is unknown. It's been inhabited since the Jomon period. Interesting. Very interesting. Doesn't say anything about these like swapped gender roles, but that's cool. Gonna read more about that later. I love history, geography, culture, etc., and learning stuff. So gonna read that Wikipedia article. Thanks, Etsuko, for teaching me something. The beginnings of this unusual state of things dates back several centuries to a time when the husbands and sons were forced to go to another island about 40 miles away for fishing, very little of which could be done near Hachijo. When silk proved more profitable than fish, the men returned to the island, but the government was in capable hands, which have never given up their hold. Well, that's very interesting, actually. I told all this to Miss Helen and closed by saying, my cat, Cassidy, is fucking with my book that's on my bed. He's super cute, so I'm gonna turn the camera over to him for a second. Oh, I can't zoom in quite on him, but damn, he's adorable. Look at him, sleeping. He was getting pretty crazy when I started stream. He was running all around and knocking things over, so I'm glad he's eeping now. The baby, yeah, he is. He's precious. I told all this to Miss Helen and closed by saying, a subject for your meditation is the fact that these women rulers, both men and women, are healthy and happy, and the social life there is more strictly moral than it is in any other community of equal intelligence in Japan. You had better join the equal suffrage party, said Miss Helen, and go on the lecture platform with that story. It has a list toward moral uplift and might win voters for the cause. Well, and again she rose to go, your women are such unexpected creatures that I am more than ever convinced that American women are not like Japanese. We talk so much and are so noisily interested in public affairs that we are expected to do almost anything. Whatever happens, we cannot surprise the world. But for one of your timid, shrinking kind suddenly to burst into the bold, strong act like lifting drawbridges and that sort of thing completely upsets our preconceived ideas. And then to hear of its being quietly but effectively done in mass, like those island women, is rather disconcerting. She ran over the bridge, calling back, "Anyway, although you are the sweetest little lady that ever walked on sandals, you haven't convinced me. American women are not like Japanese women, more's the pity." With this absurd compliment from my extravagantly partial friend ringing in my ears, I started to walk toward the porch when suddenly a voice called from the dusky shadows across the bridge. "Oh, I didn't think of Mrs. Newton. I'll give up. She is like a Japanese woman. Good night." I smiled as I walked toward the porch, for I was thinking of something Mother had told me that very morning about Mrs. Newton. She was our nearest neighbor on the opposite side of the place from Miss Helen's home, and I knew her very well. She was a gentle woman, soft-voiced and shy, who loved birds and had little box houses for them in her trees. I understood why Miss Helen should say that she was like a Japanese woman, but I never thought that she was. Her ideas were so very sensible and practical, and she allowed her husband to be too attentive to her. He carried her cloak and umbrella for her, and once in the carriage I saw him lean over and fastened her slipper strap. What Mother had told me was that, a few days before, Mrs. Newton was sitting by the window sewing, when she heard a frightened chirping and saw a large snake reaching up the trunk of a tree to one of her bird boxes on a low branch. She dropped her sewing, and running to a drawer where her husband kept a gun, she shot through the open window right into the snake's head, and her little bird family was saved. "How could she do it?" I said to Mother. "I never would have believed that frail, delicate Mrs. Newton would dare even touch a gun. She's afraid of every dog on the street, and she starts and flushes if you speak to her unexpectedly. And then, anyway, how could she ever hit it?" Mother smiled. "Mrs. Newton can do many things you don't know about," she said. "When she was first married, she lived for several years on a lonely ranch out west. One stormy night, when her husband was gone, she strapped that same gun around her waist and walked 6 miles through darkness and danger to bring help to an injured workman." I recalled Mrs. Newton's soft and gentle voice, almost timid manner. "After all," I said to myself, "she is like a Japanese woman." Ooh, that's the end of chapter 20, guys. And I said I was going to stop after that. And I guess I will, because it looks like the next chapter's pretty long. And I did come straight from work to stream. So I guess the story is going to have to end there and wait until next week. Ketamine, I'm sorry that you're not quite asleep yet. I didn't do my job. But if you close your eyes now and pretend you're sleeping, we'll consider it a success. So, for those of you who weren't here at the beginning of the stream, I was saying that my work schedule changed, which blah, 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 blah. Not important, super important, but I did come straight from work to streaming today. And I'm reminding this again because I usually post my schedule on Sunday nights for the week. And this week, I'm probably not going to post my schedule until tomorrow afternoon because my work schedule changed just today. And I have some other stuff going on this week, and I'm not really sure how it's going to play out yet, so I'm probably going to post my schedule for the week tomorrow afternoon. It's all the pumpkin ale. Yeah, I guess you're right. Pumpkin ale is delicious, though. I didn't have any for Halloween time. So I have some now, and it's worth it. It's worth it. Well, we're going to head off for the night. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you're feeling good and sleepy. I hope that you drank some tea or possibly some pumpkin ale of your own. I'm not really sure. We didn't talk tea today. We didn't talk tea shop. Maybe next time. I think I'm going to be on tomorrow night, despite my schedule changing, despite the schedule not being posted yet. I think I'll be streaming tomorrow night. Maybe Eastward. Maybe Overwatch. We'll see. It'll be posted in Discord when I know. But I do appreciate you guys being here with me. I'm going to see if there's anyone on to raid for tonight. No, not really. I wonder if there's any other people out there reading books on Twitch. I guess there are, but like barely. It's just me. Maybe I should just become a full-time Twitch reader. Anyway, I hope you guys all have a lovely rest of your night. Sleep tight, get into bed, especially ketamine. It's 5:06 a.m. You gotta close those peepers, my dude. Well, it was a great stream. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let your bed bugs bite you, please. And I'll see y'all next time.